Perfection is one of those seductive ideas that traps people because it promises acceptance and admiration, yet it never delivers. If you look closely, perfection is always defined by someone else's lens. What society calls perfect today, it will ridicule tomorrow. Standards of beauty, success, intelligence, these are not fixed. They are cultural fashions that shift with time, and if you build your sense of self on them, you're always at risk of collapse. Perfection, in that sense, is an illusion. You chase it, you strive for it, but it's like running after a horizon. You never quite reach it. And when you live that way, you end up losing something far more valuable than perfection could ever offer: your self-respect. Self-respect, by contrast, is not built on external approval. It's built on an inner recognition of your worth. It's the quiet acknowledgement that you are flawed, yes, but that doesn't diminish your value. In fact, it's precisely your ability to confront those flaws honestly that gives you strength. A person with self-respect doesn't need to perform for the crowd. They don't need to wear a mask to be accepted. Instead, they live in alignment with their principles, and that integrity is far more attractive than any image of flawlessness. Think about the people you truly admire. It isn't their perfection that draws you in, it's their authenticity. It's the sense that they are real, that they are grounded, that they aren't trying to impress you, but instead are willing to show you who they actually are. That's what creates respect, and with respect comes attraction. The tragedy is that so many people spend their lives trying to appear perfect, ironing out every rough edge, erasing every vulnerability, when in reality, those rough edges are what make them human. Self-respect doesn't mean pretending you're flawless. It means standing tall despite your flaws, refusing to let them define you, and living in such a way that you can look yourself in the mirror and know you did not betray who you are. Perfection will enslave you, self-respect will free you. And freedom, more than flawlessness, is what makes a person truly magnetic. When you encounter someone who carries themselves with self-respect, you notice something immediately. There's a weight to their presence, a kind of steadiness that makes you take them seriously. It's not loud, it's not boastful, and it's certainly not about showing off perfection. It's about character. Self-respect signals strength of character in a way that no amount of polish or external success can substitute. What does strength of character mean? It means the ability to say no when no is necessary. It means standing firm in your values even when it's unpopular or inconvenient. It means being able to tolerate disapproval without crumbling. That's rare, and it's rare because it requires discipline. To respect yourself, you have to be willing to confront your own weaknesses honestly, and then take responsibility for them. Most people would rather chase the illusion of perfection than confront the uncomfortable reality of who they are. But the paradox is this: when you confront the truth about yourself, flaws and all, and still choose to act with integrity, that's where real strength comes from. Think about the alternative. A person obsessed with appearing perfect becomes fragile. They need constant reassurance. They bend their principles to maintain approval. They're like glass, clear, polished, but easily shattered. In contrast, a person with self-respect is like stone. They're not flawless, they carry cracks and imperfections, but they are solid, and you can lean on them. People are drawn to that solidity because it communicates trustworthiness, and it goes further. Self-respect doesn't just protect you, it also sets the tone for how others treat you. When you carry yourself with dignity, you subtly teach people what behavior you will and won't accept. You establish, without words, that your value is not up for negotiation. That's immensely attractive because it shows resilience, independence, and depth, qualities far more enduring than a fleeting image of perfection. So if you want to cultivate strength of character, start with self-respect. Stop asking, "How do I look to others?" and begin asking, "Am I living in a way I can respect?" Because the truth is, people will always be drawn to strength they can trust, not perfection they can't believe in. Strength of character is rare, and that rarity is exactly what makes it magnetic. There's a reason why confidence is so compelling, and it has very little to do with arrogance or bravado. Real confidence emerges from self-respect, and it carries a quiet power that perfection can never replicate. You can meet someone who appears flawless, perfectly dressed, perfectly spoken, perfectly composed, but if underneath that surface they lack confidence, you feel it. Something doesn't align. There's hesitation, insecurity, a need for approval, and that need undermines everything else, no matter how polished the appearance might be. Confidence, by contrast, outshines flawlessness because it radiates from within. It's not about trying to prove yourself, it's about knowing yourself. A confident person doesn't walk into a room hoping to be liked. They walk in knowing that their worth isn't dependent on the reaction of others. That calm assurance is magnetic. It makes people feel at ease because they can sense that they're in the presence of someone who isn't performing, who isn't desperately trying to impress. Perfection, ironically, often creates distance. If someone looks too polished, too untouchable, others feel they can't connect with them. It generates intimidation, not intimacy, but confidence does the opposite. It draws people closer. Why? Because confidence communicates trust. It says, I'm comfortable with myself, and therefore I can be comfortable with you. That's far more attractive than the fragile mask of perfection. And let's be clear, confidence doesn't mean being without flaws. In fact, it's the ability to acknowledge those flaws without being destroyed by them that makes confidence authentic. When someone can admit a mistake, laugh at themselves, and keep moving forward, you see strength, not weakness. That's a person you want to be around because their stability gives you stability. So the pursuit of flawlessness is a trap. It leaves you anxious, fragile, and disconnected. But the cultivation of confidence, grounded in self-respect, creates a presence that people can't ignore. It's not the absence of imperfection that draws others to you. It's the presence of certainty in who you are. Confidence doesn't demand the spotlight. It naturally attracts it. And when you carry that kind of confidence, perfection becomes irrelevant. One of the most misunderstood aspects of attraction is the role of boundaries. Many people believe that being attractive means being endlessly accommodating, saying yes to everything, avoiding conflict, and bending over backward to please. That might earn temporary approval, but it never earns lasting respect. And without respect, attraction quickly fades. Boundaries, on the other hand, are what make people take you seriously. They create an invisible line that communicates, I know my value, and I won't allow it to be diminished. Think about it. When someone has no boundaries, you don't admire them, you pity them. They become easy to manipulate, easy to use, and easy to discard. And deep down, people sense this. Attraction doesn't grow from endless availability. It grows from the recognition that someone has the strength to protect themselves. Boundaries are, in a sense, a form of self-respect made visible. They signal that you're not desperate for approval, and that makes your presence more compelling, not less. Paradoxically, perfection often destroys boundaries. In the pursuit of appearing flawless, people say yes to everything, they suppress their real feelings, they tolerate disrespect, all because they're afraid of losing approval. But that's not attractive, that's weak. What actually commands attention is the person who refuses to compromise their dignity for the sake of pleasing others. That refusal is what generates desire, because it demonstrates strength, independence, and authenticity. And this doesn't mean being cold or harsh. Boundaries don't push people away. They draw the right people closer. They filter out those who would exploit or disrespect you, and they attract those who value you precisely because you value yourself. When someone says no with clarity and without apology, it creates a kind of gravity around them. You recognize that this is a person who cannot be easily swayed, and that makes them all the more magnetic. So ask yourself, are you trying to be perfect, or are you willing to stand firm in who you are? Because one will make you a doormat, and the other will make you someone people can't ignore. Boundaries don't repel love, they give it space to exist. One of the greatest misconceptions about strength is that it means never showing weakness. People assume that if they reveal their flaws, they'll lose respect, but the truth is the opposite. Vulnerability, when combined with self-respect, becomes one of the most powerful expressions of strength. Why? Because it demonstrates honesty. It shows that you are willing to be seen as you really are, without hiding behind a mask of perfection. That level of openness requires courage. Perfection walls people off. It creates an image so polished that it becomes untouchable, almost inhuman. And while others might admire it from a distance, they rarely feel connected to it. But vulnerability, grounded in dignity, does the opposite. It draws people closer. When someone admits their imperfections without collapsing into shame, it creates trust. It says, I am real, and I am not afraid of being real with you. That authenticity is far more compelling than an image of flawlessness could ever be. The key, though, is self-respect. Vulnerability without self-respect quickly turns into weakness. It becomes oversharing, desperation for validation, or the inability to stand firm. But when vulnerability is supported by an inner strength, it becomes a bridge. It allows others to see you as human, but it also communicates that your value isn't diminished by imperfection. That combination, honesty with resilience, is extraordinarily attractive because it's so rare. Think of the people you admire most. They're not the ones who never fail. They're the ones who fail openly, acknowledge it, and keep going. Their ability to face imperfection honestly inspires others to do the same. That kind of vulnerability doesn't weaken them, it elevates them. And it teaches a profound lesson: you don't need to be perfect to be worthy. So instead of fearing vulnerability, recognize its power. Use it to connect, but anchor it in self-respect so it doesn't consume you. Because it's not the mask of perfection that leaves a lasting impression. It's the courage to show your humanity without apology. Vulnerability, when held with dignity, doesn't diminish you, it makes you unforgettable. The pursuit of perfection is exhausting because it's endless. There is always a flaw to hide, an angle to improve, a standard just out of reach. It becomes a treadmill running harder and harder, but never arriving anywhere. That's why people who chase perfection often live with chronic anxiety. They are constantly performing, constantly comparing, constantly fearing that they'll be exposed as less than ideal. And even if, for a moment, they manage to appear flawless, the satisfaction doesn't last. It evaporates the second someone else appears more polished, more successful, or more admired. Self-respect, by contrast, is sustainable. It doesn't require you to keep up with shifting cultural fashions or impossible personal expectations. It doesn't demand that you hide your humanity. Instead, it offers a stable foundation, something solid you can stand on no matter the circumstances. Self-respect says, I may not be perfect, but I know who I am, and I won't betray that for approval. That stance creates consistency, and consistency creates peace. And peace, unlike perfection, is deeply attractive. When someone carries themselves with calm assurance, when they don't appear desperate to prove themselves, when they radiate an ease that comes from knowing their own worth, people notice. It's the kind of presence that feels steady in a chaotic world, and that steadiness draws others in, because we all crave something we can rely on. Chasing perfection will burn you out, and even if you succeed temporarily, it will leave you hollow. But cultivating self-respect not only sustains you, it sustains your relationships, your work, and your sense of purpose. It makes attraction last because it's built on something real, not on a fragile performance. So the choice is stark but simple. You can keep exhausting yourself by trying to be flawless, or you can free yourself by choosing to be authentic. One path leaves you empty, the other makes you magnetic. Perfection fades, but self-respect endures. And in the end, endurance is far more attractive than illusion.